June 14, 1943. Night falls like a curtain over the waste of the Pacific. The Solomon Islands a scatter of black teeth on the horizon, their edges silvered by a thin, slanting moon. The sea is a glass that breathes, small, impatient waves that slap a wooden hull and send salty spray into faces hardened by salt and watch. In the dark, the silhouettes of islands are nothing more than low, black promises. The sky is a ceiling of heavy stars that watch without blinking. On the quarterdeck of an 80-foot motor torpedo boat, an Elko racing across the water that smells of warmed gasoline and hot metal, Ensign Tom Harrigan stands with his hands braced on the wheel. He is 26, his jaw dusted with stubble, eyes raw from 3 nights of patrol and little sleep. He smells of bunker oil and boot leather. His jacket is leather and worn where his knees have kissed the deck on landings and where the chart case straps have rubbed him raw. He has a map spread under one forearm, a pencil-sketched plot of reefs and shipping lanes around Columbangra and Vella Lavella, a thin, merciless spiderweb of ink and graphite. Beside him, the boatswain Sergeant Mike Alvarez is bent over the torpedo racks, his fingers moving like someone who's spent his life with tools in his hands. He checks lashings and grease, a ritual that is as much about staving off fear as it is about preparing the boat. The Elko's twin Packard engines push the hull forward at close to 30 knots. The engines do not purr, they scream and roar like confined beasts, and every time the boat rides a swell the whole vessel shudders. Men talk in clipped phrases, eyes as alert as gun sights. A sailor at the bow taps the rail, phosphorescent foam runs off the prow like spilled milk. The radio is quiet. Operational discipline calls for silence at night, radio silence to avoid interception. Discretion is as much a weapon as the torpedoes. Across the night, further out and slightly to the northeast, a Japanese convoy moves with deliberate, oily confidence, a small fleet of freighters and a light escort. Their lights are dim to regulation but their watchmen are high on the decks, cigarettes flaring in the dark. From the Japanese officer's vantage, the Solomons are a highway they have used for months now, supply runs, troop movements, food, and armaments sliding along the thin string of islands that divides ocean from land. They call the PT boats mosquitoes, a contemptuous nickname J-gunners and stokers toss between rounds of sake, and they laugh at the idea that anything as fragile and fast as those small craft could seriously damage the heavy, laden freighters with their red-brown hulls and lead armor. On the cruiser Akabono, Lieutenant Commander Masato Sato leans over the rail, an ever-present cigarette between his fingers. He is an officer with a pedigree, with briefed orders and confident lines on a chart. The Solomon seas are his chessboard, his pieces are men and coal and steel. He looks at the dark line of islands and back at the pins of light from his steaming escorts. PT, his junior officer asks. Bah, Sato says, flicking ash into the night. Just small, fast nuisances. Scatter the mines. Keep your guns ready. They are no match for a destroyer. The confidence on those larger decks is not arrogance so much as distance, distance in size, distance in mass, distance in years at sea. A freighter's crew cannot imagine the small speedboats as anything more than shallow draft nuisances, like wasps around a lantern. They are used to seeing fishing skiffs, barges, and occasional American points that run reconnaissance, and though there are rumors of torpedo attacks, they feel secure. The convoys are escorted by destroyers and armed trawlers. Their captains smoke and play cards beneath the dim glow of deck lamps, reeking faintly of soy and oil. They joke about the little American speedboats on the radio and pass around talismans for luck. Back on the Elko, the crew's training is a sharper, more intimate thing. There is no heavy armor to hide behind, no bulk to stand on. Everything is exposed to the ocean and to the night. Harrigan's mind runs the checklist in a loop: engines, pumps, steering, then weapons. The torpedoes are the heart of the machine, long, cylindrical tubes, their noses capped and their warheads sealed. The men call them fish when they are not talking about them in the language of officers. These fish are loaded into cradles along the gunnels, weighty and cold to the touch. They are not subtle, they are blunt, precise instruments of collision and physics. Each torpedo is a promise: make the shot, and the rest will be sudden, explosive, and final. The PT boat's doctrine is simple and radical. It rejects standoff power and replaces it with speed, deception, and night. It embraces being small and quick, using darkness and local knowledge to live inside the blind spots of larger ships. Instead of slugging it out, the PT boats come in like wolves, close, fast, and aim to strike the soft underbelly. They run low and fast, hugging the waves until the enemy's searchlights seem like angry eyes. Men on battleships and destroyers have trouble seeing them until the last instant. And when they are seen, if they are seen at all, the boats are already gone, melting into the night. The Solomons themselves are a character in this story, a confounding tangle of reefs and shoals where one wrong course can mean the whole boat becomes a story of timbers and water. Charts are imprecise, tides are fickle. The small craft captains lean on local pilots sometimes, islanders or coast watchers who know the reefs and channels, and on the map-like memory of moon phases and swell patterns. The night is as much a map as a tool. It is a knife edge between safety and ruin. At 2,200 hours, Harrigan gets the signal from the lead boat in the squadron, a series of lights and hand gestures that translate into bearing and speed. The order is simple: intercept the convoy, lay upwind of their course, run in fast, and get a clean shot. No prolonged engagement. If guns are exchanged, don't linger. The little boat's armor is its speed and its smallness. Harrigan tucks his chin and nods. All stations, he murmurs. You heard him. Engines on 4. Watch the starboard side. We've got a freighter and a light escort. Keep low. Quiet. Then the crew becomes a machine of practiced motions. Torpedo man First Class Ronaldo Ren Briggs slides into the torpedo cradle, his knuckles white as he cinches the securing strap. Lieutenant J.G. Samuel Sam Avery, the executive officer, crouches by the twin .50 caliber machine guns at the stern. His eyes are dark and steady. He checks belts of ammunition, clicks a round into place like a metronome for courage. The crew is small, a dozen men who have slept in hammocks and felt rain on their faces in the middle of the ocean. Each has a role, a ritual, a superstition, a rosary wound in the seam of a jacket, a pack of gum someone always chews, a lucky coin tucked in a boot. The small rituals are ballast. They are human. The first half hour of the run is a series of micro-decisions. Harrigan peels the throttle back and then pushes it forward, feeling the hull rider swell and then drop into a trough. The convoy's black shapes loom and recede like mountains seen through fog. They can hear the distant plod of diesel from the freighters, a steady, secure sound. The lights of the convoy are trimmed, but there is an ambient glow, lanterns, red navigation lights, the hush of lamps below decks. In that glow, a PT boat is invisible until it isn't. This is where the craft excel. They do not approach head-on. They come in obliquely, a slanted arrow that leverages wake and darkness. A torpedo is not launched from afar, it is given a short, clean run, a few hundred yards, so that its momentum is precise, its gyros aligned. Launch too far and the torpedo may lose guidance. Launch too near and the throw may be spotted and evaded. The sweet spot is the place where the enemy's mass cannot turn fast enough. From the deck of the freighter, a lookout mutters, "Small wake off the bow." A laugh slides across the deck. A petty officer waves a hand. They make jokes about flies and scooters. They think of the PT boats as theater, small, bold, and ultimately nothing more than an annoyance. On the cruiser, a signalman improvises a rude drawing of a speedboat on a spare piece of paper, tacked to a board. The men below decks who sleep and dream of home are not yet acclimated to the idea that small things can be fatal. At 2,307 hours, with the moon dipped behind a bank of cloud and the sea oil flat, Harrigan's helm light is off. The Elko slides into a place no one on the freighter expected to find, a narrow channel between reef and ship, a place where, from the deck of the convoy, the horizon is a blank between lights and black. Harrigan can see the large silhouette of the freighter's stern, a broad, slatted waterfront where cargo was stacked like ruins. He gives a soft hand signal to Wren, who answers with a tight, small smile. The torpedo racks shudder as the boat eases into firing position. "Hold steady," Harrigan whispers. 3 degrees to port. Hold speed. Wren braces and releases the breech. The torpedo slides on its cradle, groaning like a sleeper being woken. It is a moment of terrible stillness, as if the sea itself were inhaling. The crew's faces are lit faintly by a single instrument lamp, their breath shallow. In the silence, the only sounds are the motors and a slight, distant clink as cargo shifts on the freighter. Harrigan's finger finds the firing pin. He thinks, for the briefest instant, a human, terrible thought, of his mother. He thinks of the letters pinned to his bunk and the smell of coffee at dawn. Then he thinks of the men who will not see the torpedo coming. War erases such considerations into economics of odds. Harrigan tells himself that the torpedo will free a piece of ocean, will make the seas less certain for those who use them for war. That, he decides, is enough. The torpedo leaves with a sharp hiss and a brief spuming of bubbles. It cuts the night like a silent, accurate animal, its wake a faint, white filament against the dark. The crew watches it for a beat, a year in which a nerve might snap or a false hope pulse. Then there is the thunder, a shockwave that runs along the water and into the hull like a hand pressing a palm. The freighter flares with an ungainly, obscene light as fuel and stores meet the torpedo's warhead. A line of flame and smoke unfurls upward into the night, and the deck, once a quiet deck, becomes a place of sudden chaos. Shouts ripple through the convoy, running feet. Lanterns bob like startled fireflies. The destroyer escort turns, searchlight stabbing and dragging across the water, but the PT boat has already fallen off, tugging itself back into a blackness it knows intimately. The initial convulsive shock travels through the hull of Harrigan's boat. The men feel the change in the sea's breath. They do not cheer. They are too close to the mechanism of ruin to feel pleasure. They are professional in a way that keeps them from indulgence. They have done wrong, and they are soothed only by the knowledge that their wrong was for a cause they accept. That is the only cushion. On the freighter, the confusion follows a pattern. Officers shout commands, men scramble for life rafts. The destroyer's searchlight pins the burning ship like an insect under glass. The crew can see faces contorted with smoke and smoke-blackened arms. On Accabono, laughter dies and a cold, hard focus takes its place. Where did it come from? Someone asks. Sato's hand tightens on the rail. For the first time, the laughable becomes literal. Torpedoes can, and do, arrive from nowhere. That first strike is the turning point for many of the men on both sides. For the Japanese, the arrogance sours into suspicion. How could something so small, so apparently ephemeral, deliver such a blow? For the Americans, there is grim satisfaction and a dawning respect for the doctrine they have been practicing. Stealth and aggression can combine into a weapon that exacts a cost far larger than its size would suggest. But the Solomons are not a place for easy rules. A single success does not make a campaign. The Japanese will adapt, and they will do so with the kind of discipline that begets countermeasures, better night watches, searchlight patterns altered, different convoy routes. The PT commanders know this. Harrigan and others are not naive. They have read the dispatches and the after-action reports. They understand that each victory will compel the enemy to change tactics, and that the boats that won tonight's raid will be hunted tomorrow. The men like to tell a simpler story in the mess, of how they slipped like ghosts, how the torpedo found its home in the freighter's belly, how the destroyer's gunners fired as if at fireflies. But the real story is stitched from smaller, human details, the way Wren's fingers bled from tightening bolts, the soft prayer the radio operator muttered as the torpedo slipped away, the way Mike's laughter broke seconds after the explosion because fear and humor are two sides of the same coin on a small boat. In the long run, these fragments are the texture of what it meant to fight in the Solomons. By dawn, the burning freighter is a hulking wreck, a blackened tooth on the water. Aircraft from both sides begin to crisscross the skies. Planes will come and go, and the ocean, once again, will take its quiet. The PT boats, with their small, courageous crews, melt away into the fingers of islands and return to base for fuel and more ammunition. They will be patched, greased, and sent out again, because they are uniquely suited to this kind of war. But rumors travel fast in the South Pacific. Word of the attack spreads among Japanese sailors, through radios, through the nervous conversations of officers in ashore bars, through the tense, quick deliveries of signals. Those small boats, Sato mutters as he watches the radar screens, they came from nowhere and left burning hulls. The phrase begins to spread like a new superstition. torpedoes from nowhere. Men begin to look over their shoulders at night, to imagine dark wakes, and in their imaginations these small boats bloom into voracious things. On the American side, the strike becomes part of a developing legend, not necessarily of bravado, but of effectiveness. Commanders in the PT squadrons write reports with careful, dry language that understates the terror they bring. The Navy brass reads those reports and notes that these small vessels can be used to beat supply lines and harass troop convoys with relative economy. On base, the younger sailors come to watch the PT boats return, almost reverent. They admire the speed, the daring, the intimacy of the work. To them, the PT is romance with teeth. In the immediate aftermath, for Harrigan and his crew, there is no victory parade. There is only the steady, corrosive task of maintenance, torpedoes rechecked, engines checked for stress fractures, charts updated, names added to a list. They are not immune to the small joys of survival: cigarette smoke, a warm flask, a letter read under a dim lamp. They sit on the deck and let the night cool their skin, and they talk about trivialities to keep fear from gathering a shape. The sea goes on, indifferent and colossal. Still, in the darkness, something has changed. The balance of contempt, of presumed invulnerability that the large ships carried, has cracked. Japanese crews who scorned the points now whisper in a different tone. The idea that a mosquito could unmake a freighter's life seems less like a fable and more like a rule to be reckoned with. The Solomons, ringed with reefs and litty by the sounds of battle, have become a place where the small can meet the large and, sometimes, win. Harrigan stares at the horizon until the sky is a single blue smear and the dawn pushes against the night like a slow, inevitable fist. He feels the weight of the sea, the hum of the engines, the knowledge that they will go out again when orders come. For now, there is the ritual of the deck, the scraping and tightening, the swapping of boots wrung with seawater for dry ones. There are prayers and curses, a cigarette passed in silence. There is a brief, private exhilaration in having been there when something enormous shifted. And when the word goes out to the rest of the squadron, to keep at it, to press the advantage, Harrigan nods. He thinks of how small, fast craft can be used to bend the rules of naval power. He thinks of the Japanese crews who mocked. He knows their laughter has been replaced by a watchfulness now. The sea, indifferent as ever, is now more dangerous for them. That knowledge will shape the next weeks and months of the Solomons campaign, torpedoes that appear to come from nowhere, and the men who pilot the boats that make that nowhere a mortal place. June 16, 1943. 2 days after the attack. The Solomon night is thick again, a humid, velvet darkness clinging to every tree and inlet of Wendover Harbor. Diesel fumes mingle with the scent of wet mangrove and fermenting coconut husk. Mosquitoes hum in the air, and the sea laps lazily against pilings. On the PT boat dock, floodlights cast long, trembling shadows across the water as maintenance crews crawl over their vessels like surgeons over a patient. PT 187 sits low in her berth, streaked with salt and soot. Her white paint, once crisp, is now a mottled skin of stains, bruises, and scars from the last run. Under the floodlight, her torpedo racks are empty, the cradles open and bare, waiting for new warheads. Mechanics in grease-black and fatigues move with confident economy. The war waits for no man, and every boat must be ready by dusk. Ensign Harrigan stands on the dock with his jacket unzipped, a tattered notebook in hand. His pencil taps against the binding, each stroke matching his pulse. Beside him, Sam Avery sips weak coffee from a chipped tin mug. "You going to get any sleep before tonight?" Sam asks. Harrigan rubs the bridge of his nose. "If I sleep, I'm afraid I'll start dreaming about wakes and searchlights again." Sam huffs, the ghost of a grin on his face. "You say that like it's not already happening." Down the dock, Ren Briggs helps guide a replacement torpedo into place. The weapon swings from a crane hook, its steel belly glinting faintly under the floodlight. He calls out distances in a steady rhythm: 10 inches forward. 6 left. Hold, lower, lower, easy. Bolt it. Sounding far calmer than he feels. Sweat runs from his brow, dripping onto the hull. The torpedo clicks into its cradle, and Ren taps it twice with his knuckles. "Fish is snug," he shouts. A chorus of replies echoes down the dock: "Snug." Locked. Ready for grease. The squadron's engineering officer, Lieutenant Orson Cleary, strides toward them with a clipboard under his arm. His bald head gleams with sweat. "We got word from Intel," he says without preamble. "Japanese traffic's picking up again near Vela Gulf. They're pushing extra barges down from Bougainville. If we are lucky, we get to bite another chunk out of their supply chain." Harrigan snaps the notebook shut. "Same escort configuration?" "Possibly leaner," Cleary says. "They're getting cagey. Rumor says they're shifting destroyers further north. They might think mosquito season is over." Sam muses. "They'll learn." Cleary nods grimly. "They always do." The Japanese were learning, but not fast enough. Night approaches again. By late afternoon, the sun paints the sky with broad swaths of gold. The heat presses like a hand against every man's back. The men gather near the dock's edge for a briefing, maps laid out on a crate, a single lantern illuminating the ridged lines of reefs and islands. Lieutenant Commander Reginald "Reggie" Brooks, the squadron executive officer, crouches over the chart. Sam lifts his hand. "Same tactic as last run?" "No," Brooks says. "They'll expect us to come from behind this time." He taps the opposite side of the convoy route. "We flip the script. We move in from starboard, shallow angle. They'll look for wakes in one direction, we give them another." "And if they've added more guns?" Wren asks. Brooks shrugs. "Don't get shot." A few of the younger sailors chuckle again, but the veterans stay quiet. Everyone knows the joke is a shield. Back in the water. 20-30 hours. Dusk. PT 187 pulls away from the dock, engines rumbling a bass note that vibrates through the bay. The boat noses past palms and into the open water, joined by PT 185 and PT 182 in loose formation. The sky darkens into a deep cobalt. The wind rips through their hair and clothes, leaving their faces stung and numb. "Running dark," Harrigan orders. Lights click off. The boat becomes a shadow sliding through deeper shadows. Above them, faint thunder rolls, distant aircraft, too high to see, perhaps Japanese, perhaps American. In the Solomons, the sky belongs to no one. The hunt begins. At 2,200 hours, the PT squadron reaches a narrow channel between two reefs. The water here is treacherous, deceptively calm on the surface, deadly jagged beneath. Harrigan reduces speed. The boat glides over the black glass. Sam leans toward Harrigan. "This is too damn quiet." "Quiet's good," Harrigan replies. "Quiet usually means something's about to go loud." Harrigan can't argue with that. Every man feels the same sensation, a tightening, an electric coil winding inside their chest. Harrigan's hand rests on the firing mechanism. "Wait." The convoy shifts. Just a little closer. The moon emerges from behind a cloud, throwing a sudden, faint glow across the water. The Japanese lookout on the forward barge shouts, pointing. "Damn!" Sam hisses. "Now!" Harrigan snaps. Wren pulls the lever. The torpedo slides, smooth, silent, a steel predator taking to water. Its wake glints faintly under the moonlight. Sam sees the Japanese gun crew scramble. Harrigan's heart slams against his ribs. For one suspended moment, the world holds its breath. Then, a flash, a column of fire, an eruption of water and metal. The transport rocks violently, its hull splitting under the torpedo's force. Screams echo across the water. The gunboat swings toward them. Its searchlight snaps on, blinding, white, blazing. Sam curses. "We've been made." Tracer rounds slice the air. "Full throttle." Harrigan shouts. The engines roar. PT 187 leaps forward. Bullets snap past their ears, tearing through air and water. One round shatters a railing post inches from Wren's head. He flinches but holds on. "Brace." Harrigan yells as the boat veers sharply, skimming the edge of the reef. Coral flashes beneath them, bright and lethal. Tracer fire rakes the water behind them, but the gunboat overshoots, too heavy to turn quickly. "They can't catch us." Sam shouts. "They can try," Harrigan growls. "But they won't." The PT boat darts back into darkness, swallowed by the very shadows that birthed it. Behind them, The transport burns, a towering inferno marking the spot where a Japanese crew learned, once again, that even the smallest enemy can strike with devastating force. The chant begins among the Japanese ranks, fearful, shaken, whispered through clenched teeth. Torpedoes, from nowhere? The sea south of Vela Gulf is a black, rippling void, lit only by the smoldering glow of the torched Japanese transport shrinking in the distance. PT 187 races through the dark, engines still running hot, men gripping metal and wood as the hull jolts over swells. Spray slaps the crew like cold slaps to the face. The wind whistles past their helmets. But Harrigan doesn't blink, not even once. His fingers are glued to the throttles, knuckles white, as the Packards scream at full roar. Gunboats still back there. Sam shouts over the wind. But they're lagging. Harrigan risks a glance behind them. Through the churned wake, a distant silhouette thrashes its way through the water, searchlight sweeping wildly. Too heavy, too slow. The PT boat's greatest weakness, its fragile hull, is also its greatest asset. She can run, and keep running. Speed is our armor. Wren yells from the aft deck, one hand gripping a cleat, the other pressed to his helmet. The phrase, a favorite of their squadron commander, has never felt so literal. Sam spits seawater. Yeah, well, armor's getting us soaked. Better wet than dead. Wren fires back. A fresh burst of gunfire erupts behind them, wild, inaccurate, desperate. The tracers fall short by dozens of yards. Harrigan keeps his eyes forward, voice steady. Hold on. We are not out yet. The darkness thickens as they plunge between two looming black masses, the silhouettes of forested islands. Palm fronds sway like hands beckoning them inward. The narrow channel ahead is barely wide enough for a PT boat. A reef crouches unseen beneath the starless surface. Risky. Sam shouts. No choice. Harrigan growls. The boat knifes through. Safe? For now. The moment PT 187 slips out the far end of the channel, the sea opens again. Harrigan throttles back. The boat coughs, sputters, then settles into a low, steady hum. Men climb shakily from their stations. Arms tremble. Knees wobble. But they're alive. Sam collapses onto a coil of rope. I swear we threaded that channel with inches to spare. Wren sits beside him, chest heaving. Yeah. My soul's still back there. Harrigan keeps a firm grip on the wheel, though his hands finally stop shaking. He breathes in the thick, warm air, tastes oil, salt, and adrenaline. The scent of burning metal from the destroyed transport lingers even now, drifting across the water like a ghost. Sam wipes grime from his cheek with a sleeve already stained from earlier battles. Think the Japs will believe their ship was hit by a little canoe with engines? Oh, they believe it, Wren replies. That's why they're shooting blind into the ocean right now. A ripple of exhausted laughter passes through the deck. But Harrigan doesn't laugh. His gaze stays fixed on the horizon. Because far in the distance, beyond the channel they'd escaped, the Japanese gunboat stops moving. Its searchlight goes still. Then, abruptly, it flickers off. Sam notices. Why'd they cut the light? Wren frowns. Running dark? No, Harrigan says quietly. They're listening. To what? Sam asks. Harrigan takes in a slow breath. To us. They lost us. They're hoping we make a mistake. The sea grows unnervingly quiet, no gunfire, no engines, just the soft lap of water. Wren leans closer to Harrigan. So what's the plan? We swing south, Harrigan says. Keep low, keep slow, hug the islands all the way home. And hope they don't send aircraft after dawn? Sam mutters. Harrigan gives a thin smile. They won't. Not tonight. They're rattled. Back to base, but not back to rest. 0430 hours. Dawn creeps over Rendova Harbor in watery shades of orange and pink. PT 187 coasts in on fumes, coughing smoke from her overheated engines. Mechanics rush forward, ropes fly, and hands catch the hull as it bumps gently against the pilings. The moment the engines shut off, the men's bodies release the tension they'd been holding for hours. Sam drops his helmet to the deck with a clatter. Wren sags against the torpedo rack. A voice cuts through the morning haze. You boys look like hell. Lieutenant Commander Brooks stands on the dock, arms crossed. His fatigue shirt is unbuttoned at the collar. His expression is unreadable, half stern, half proud. Harrigan steps off the boat stiffly. "We got the transport, sir." "I saw the fireball from here," Brooks says. "Hell of a shot." Wren smirks. "We aim to please." "Don't get cocky," Brooks snaps, though the corner of his mouth twitches. "Intel says the Japanese are furious. You cost them a lot of material last night." He pauses for effect. "And wounded their pride even worse." Sam raises an eyebrow. "We really riled them?" Brooks nods. "Reports from scouts say the convoy escort thought you were multiple submarines. Not PT boats. Subs." Wren lets out a bark of laughter. "A submarine? Us? This thing rattles like a tin shed when we hit full throttle." "They don't know what you are anymore," Brooks says. "They just know you can appear out of nowhere and kill something big." Sam grins. "That's the point, isn't it?" Brooks points at Harrigan. "Get your logs written. Command wants details ASAP." Then he turns and walks away. Harrigan watches him go. The high from battle is fading, replaced by exhaustion. But something else is stirring too, a murmur spreading across the PT squadrons, gaining shape and weight. They were finally being taken seriously. The Japanese perspective, a shift in the wind. While PT-187's crew drags themselves toward bunks and mess tins, a world away, aboard a Japanese destroyer anchored north of Kolombangara, a very different mood hangs in the officers' wardroom. Captain Tamio Shibata slams his fist onto the table. Tea sloshes over the rim of his cup. "Unacceptable," he roars. "A transport sunk by invisible torpedoes." His officers stand stiffly at attention. Each bears the expression of men caught between truth and humiliation. An ensign speaks timidly. "Sir, reports indicate the Americans used small motor craft. Hard to detect in darkness." "Impossible," Shibata snaps. "A vessel that small could not carry torpedoes." Yet the wreckage. Silence. He turns to the porthole, staring out at the restless grey sea. Gulls circle overhead, their cries echoing like mockery. Shibata's voice softens, but only slightly. "We are the Imperial Japanese Navy. Our ships are the sword of His Majesty." And yet, his jaw tightens. "These American mosquitoes bite us again and again." Another officer ventures, "If I may, Captain, perhaps we underestimated them." Shibata whirls. "Underestimated? They are gnats. Children in wooden toys." The officer swallows hard. "Sir, gnats that sink transports. Toys that throw torpedoes." Silence fills the room. Outside, the destroyer's flag flutters in the rising wind. Shibata finally sits, shoulders slumping as fatigue overtakes fury. "Then we must adapt. Double lookouts. Triple. Searchlights on constant sweep. Fire at every shadow. If the Americans want to wage war like ghosts," he lifts his cup again, staring into the tea. "We shall hunt ghosts." He doesn't say the rest aloud. Because the men whisper now. Whisper that the sea itself fires torpedoes. Whisper that the darkness kills. Whisper that their great ships are being stalked by enemies too small to see. The stage for a new type of warfare. Back at Rendova, the PT crews gather in the shade near the Quonset huts, eating breakfast in the humid mid-morning light. The chatter is low, tired, but energized by a single truth. The Japanese don't know what hit them. Sam stirs watery eggs with a fork. "Think they'll beef up their escort next time?" "Oh yeah," Wren replies. "And we'll find new ways to get around them." Harrigan sips black coffee, gaze drifting toward the bay where the points sit at anchor. "Sleek. Fast. Deadly." He murmurs, "They're scared now." "That's good." Sam tilts his head. But scared enemies are dangerous." The breeze shifts. Palm trees rustle. Somewhere in the distance, a bomber engine drones. Wren wipes sweat from his neck. "So what do we do?" Harrigan stands slowly, his shadow stretching across the dirt. He looks toward the horizon, toward Vela Gulf, toward the routes used by the Tokyo Express, toward the night that will come again. "We go back out," he says. "Same as always." "And the Japanese?" Sam asks. Harrigan's eyes narrow. "They'll be waiting. Night will fall again soon. And the PT boats, these mosquitoes, will rise once more from the shadows. But next time, everything will be different. The Japanese will bring more guns, more ships, more rage. Yet the PT crews will bring something greater: innovation, instinct, and the willingness to fight a giant in the dark. Section 4, The Convoy in the Slot. August 9, 1943. The Slot, that long, straight, black corridor of seawater cutting through the Solomon Islands, lies quiet, windless, and eerily glassy beneath a moon half hidden behind drifting cloud. The smell of damp mangrove and diesel exhaust lingers in the air. Somewhere in that silence, engines rumble, deep, slow, disciplined, the kind of sound that vibrates through the hull of a ship before the ear even detects it. A Japanese reinforcement convoy is moving south. 3 transports. 2 destroyers. Darkened silhouettes pushed low against the horizon. And directly in their path, waiting with engines silent, lies the swarm. PT 109, PT 157, PT 180, PT 174, and 4 others, 8 boats fanned out like sharks at the edge of a moonlit reef. The squadron has been drifting on the current for almost 20 minutes, engines cut completely. The men barely breathe. Sweat clings to skin and drips from chins. Mosquitoes skim the deck planking. The only noise is the soft grunt of a sailor shifting his weight or the quiet metallic plink, plink, plink of seawater tapping the hull. Then the deep vibration grows. Closer. Closer. Closer still. Lieutenant Rollins wipes his palm on his trousers and raises his binoculars. The lens catches the faint silhouette of a destroyer, long, narrow, predatory, slicing through the blackness. You, standing on that deck, would feel your heart hammering against your ribs. Every instinct screams that you are too exposed, too close, too fragile. Never felt this kind of pressure. The Japanese destroyer looks impossibly large, a floating fortress. Its bow waves shimmer under the moon, making the whole ship glow faintly as if rising from another world. The convoy draws closer. Rollins checks his watch. Then, a soft click over the squadron intercom. This is 157, enemy in range. You can almost hear every man straighten. Torpedo man Harris cranks the elevation wheel half a turn. Tube 1 ready. Bryant replies calmly, stand by. The destroyer looms larger. Its bow cuts a bright V in the moonlit water. The rust-red hull stretches on and on, pitted, oily, scarred, but unstoppable. The PT crews can see figures on the enemy deck now. Dark silhouettes moving along the rails. A sailor leaning on a crate. Another smoking near a bulkhead. They have no idea that death is staring back at them. Rollins inhales, holds it for a moment. Fire. The command travels through all 8 boats like a silent shockwave. Kranz pulls the trigger. Toomp. The Mark 8 torpedo launches with a deep, heavy belch, water spraying off the tube. The recoil shivers the entire boat. 3 more torpedoes fire almost simultaneously, muffled eruptions, tubes spitting white foam, the boats shuddering under the sudden release. The torpedoes skim the surface for a heartbeat, leaving white V-shaped wakes on the Black Sea. Then the wakes disappear. The torpedoes dive. Silence returns. Rollins whispers, pray they run true. The PT boats immediately swing away at low throttle, making the smallest wakes possible. Engines remain barely above idle. No bright exhaust. No sudden roar that might betray their position. The Japanese destroyer glides forward, unaware. Closing the distance. Its bridge crew laughs at something. Faint voices carried over the water. A lookout taps the railing impatiently. A petty officer yawns. Rollins checks his stopwatch again. 20 seconds. Bryant whispers, 15. A torpedoman silently counts under his breath. 8, 7, 6. You feel every second like a stone dropping in your stomach. 3, 2. A flash erupts beneath the destroyer's stern, a violent burst of white-orange fire and boiling seawater. Then comes the sound. A deep, cannon barrel detonation that rolls across the slot and slams into your chest. Boom. The entire aft section of the destroyer lifts several feet out of the water. Plates peel away like tin. Flames leap along the deck. A shockwave ripples through the convoy. Japanese sailors erupt in shouts. Panic. Spotlights snap on. Search beams cut across the water in wild sweeps. Searchlights sweep wildly, illuminating white water, drifting logs, and empty night. Then one of the beams locks onto something, a faint wake. Not one of the PT boats. Something else. Another torpedo track, silent and invisible until the last second. Bryant shouts from PT 157, "Holy hell, another hit coming in." The Japanese crew sees it too late to maneuver. The torpedo slams into the transport's bow with a thunderous burst. Fire shoots skyward. Men are thrown across the deck. The vessel jerks violently, slows, and begins listing almost immediately. Rollins stares in disbelief. That wasn't ours. The squadron commanders exchange stunned looks. If that torpedo didn't come from a PT boat, where did it come from? Spotlights sweep back and forth, painting the night in white slashing arcs. But the beams catch nothing. Not even the silhouette of a boat. On PT 157, Lieutenant Bryant leans close to the wireless operator. "Check for friendly subs in the area. Anything." The operator flips through code sheets and logs. No sub-activity reported within 100 miles. Bryant frowns. Then what's firing? Behind him, the sea glints with the reflected fire of the dying transport. Its deck guns pop and crackle. Ammunition cooks off in sporadic bursts of orange spark showers. A torpedo man on PT 157 murmurs, "Feels like someone else is out here with us." The wind carries the smell of burning fuel. The sky glows a dirty orange beneath heavy smoke drifting low to the water. Another torpedo track appears, this one faint, angled strangely, almost as if the projectile were running too shallow. It's headed straight for the remaining Japanese destroyer. Bryant watches, dumbstruck. Where? The destroyer's searchlights catch the track at the last second. Sirens howl. The ship begins a desperate hard turn to starboard, screws churning a massive white froth. But the torpedo is too close. The explosion lifts the forward deck clear of the water, a monstrous, concussive shockwave that sends steel plates buckling outward like tinfoil. The bowgun mount flips sideways. 2 sailors are hurled overboard. For a moment, the entire horizon flashes blinding white. The concussion hits the PT boat seconds later, rattling their lightweight hulls like toys. Rollins covers his face instinctively. Damn. That one was huge, that wasn't a Mark 8. Bryant's voice crackles over the radio, shaken. No, it wasn't. If the Mark 8 torpedoes are old, stubborn, sometimes erratic relics of the last war, this blast felt sharper. Heavier. Newer. Something with real teeth. But the Americans still see no attacker. Just the aftermath. A crippled Japanese destroyer now drifting, its bow half peeled open, water gushing in through jagged rents. Roland squints into the darkness to the north, past the flaming wrecks and curling smoke. Nothing. But something out there is watching them. Something deadly quiet. On PT 109, Kranz breathes, "Sir, are we being helped?" The idea is almost laughable. The Pacific is vast, and American subs operate far from these narrow island channels most nights. Rollins shakes his head. No friendly sub would fire without reporting. And certainly not from inside the slot. He stares out into the black, a cold realization creeping in. Whoever's out there, they're not firing at us. Another crewman on PT 109 murmurs, "Not yet." A pause. Then, the Japanese convoy suddenly opens fire on empty water. Searchlights converge on a patch of waves that looks no different from the rest, but the enemy crews seem convinced something lurks there. Heavy guns bark. The enemy is blind. But someone in the dark is not. Rollins raises his radio handset. All boats, Titan formation. No one strays. Eyes on the water, every direction. I don't want a surprise from whoever's launching those ghost torpedoes. The night grows still again. The only movement is the drifting crippled ships and the slow, rolling smoke. But beneath the surface, something stirs. A shadow passes under PT 180, so close the boat rocks gently in its wake. A crewman gasps, "Sir, something passed under us." Roland snaps toward the disturbance, but sees only ripples. Then, faintly, the sound of a diesel engine turning over underwater. A low, throaty mechanical groan, the kind that echoes up through the hull rather than through the air. Roland's eyes widen. That's a sub. Bryant whispers over the radio. But whose? August 9, 1943, the slot, Solomon Islands. The sea is smoke, flame, and ink-dark water. Above it all hangs an eerie hush, the kind that follows catastrophe and precedes revelation. And then, that underwater vibration again. A low, resonant rumble shivers up through the thin wooden planks of PT 109's deck. Men freeze. Heads turn. Even the wounded Japanese destroyer, drifting in agony, seems to quiet for a moment as the sound passes beneath the waves. Roland stares into the water as though trying to see through steel and salt. That's no reef. No current. That's a sub's engine warming. Bryant's voice is a hushed crackle on the intersquadron net, position unknown. Bearing. Hell, I can't get a bearing. It's moving. On PT 157, torpedo-man Willis presses his ear to the deck. He closes his eyes. It's right under us, or just ahead, moving slow. The PT boats drift in a loose, tense formation, engines idling so low you can hear the prop shafts clicking in the housings. 8 boats, 8 silhouettes against distant firelight. And somewhere beneath them, something large and silent glides through the deep. A shape without wake. A hunter without a flag. The Japanese don't see it. Their guns still fire blindly into the night, shells splashing uselessly. The remaining destroyer tries to limp away, but its bow is flooded. It can barely make headway, water pouring in around buckled plates. Rollins lifts binoculars. The entire convoy has disintegrated into chaos. And still more torpedoes are appearing, faint wakes that skim just below the surface before vanishing into darkness. These torpedoes do not belong to the Americans. And they do not run like Japanese ones. The third, Ghost, track is clearer, bright in reflected firelight, aimed squarely at the drifting Japanese destroyer. Bryant whispers to himself, 3 in one night? No American sub can reload that fast. Boom. The destroyer erupts in a monstrous flash of white-hot flame. The concussion slams into the PT boats, rattling hull frames, knocking men sideways. Fire belches from the forward magazine, blasting upward like a volcanic eruption. The bow crumples inward, collapsing in seconds. The Japanese ship's searchlights flicker once, twice. Then go dark. The slot grows silent again. The Americans stare in awe. Kranz mutters, voice trembling, we didn't do that. No one answers. The water between the burning wrecks churns once, twice, then settles. A dark shape moves beneath the surface. Slow. Confident. A submarine. But not one flying the rising sun. Rollins grips the railing. Get me the Aldous lamp. A sailor hands over the signal lamp, an old, battered piece of gear, its shutter squeaking slightly. Rollins aims it out over the black water and taps out, I-D-E-N-T-I-F-Y. Nothing. He repeats it. Still nothing. The sub continues gliding beneath the waves, not surfacing, not acknowledging. Just passing. Just watching. But then, unexpectedly, a long, deep metallic groan echoes upward from the water. The sound vibrates through the hull of PT 109, rattling loose tools and shaking the deck. A signal? A warning? A farewell? Rollins swallows hard. Bryant whispers across the ether, Rollins? I think it's leaving. And indeed, the underwater rumble begins to fade. Slowly. Methodically. Growing softer with each heartbeat. The mysterious vessel slips deeper, its shape becoming only a velvety darkness beneath the surface. Then, nothing. No wake. No noise. No sign it had ever been there at all. Just the aftermath, burning Japanese wrecks, drifting survivors, and the smell of charred fuel thick on the air. Kranz breaks the silence. Sir, what do we report? Rollins lowers the lamp. We report what we saw, torpedoes not ours. Hits not ours. A submarine of unknown origin. A crewman asks, think it was ours? Rollins thinks for a long moment. And finally says, if it was American, it was operating blacker than black. Even from us. And if it wasn't? The sentence hangs unfinished. Bryant brings his PT boat alongside, engines thumping softly against the dark swell. The sea glows with drifting embers. Somewhere far away, the phantom submarine is slipping into deeper water, leaving no trace. Rollins murmurs, almost to himself, "The Japanese mocked these little boats. Called us midgets. Mosquitoes. Harmless." Bryant answers through the rising haze, "No one's laughing now." The night breeze rises. The fires crackle. And the PT boats begin to turn south, headed back toward their island base, engines humming low, hulls slicing gently through the dark water. Behind them, the burning convoy lights the sky like a funeral pyre. The slot is quiet again. But every man knows the truth. Tonight, the PT boats weren't the only predators hunting in the dark. And somewhere beneath the endless Pacific, a silent hunter waits, unseen, unclaimed, and unanswered, its torpedoes striking like ghosts in the night.